The curved surface of the Earth fills the lower half of the view, a broad field of deep blue turning beneath open orbit. Thin bands of white cloud drift across the ocean, spreading and thinning along the planet's horizon. Above that motion, space opens in a dark, uninterrupted field. The shuttle occupies a fixed coordinate above the planet, its frame outlined against the black of orbit. Sunlight traces along the edges of the vehicle, touching the frame of the open payload bay. Other surfaces fall into muted shadow. The bay faces the Earth below. At the end of the extended servicing arm, a single figure anchors beside the mounted telescope assembly. Ryan Stone works along the outer casing of the instrument, her movements small and deliberate against the immense scale surrounding her. Tools sit locked along the arm. Her hands move across the exposed panels. A second astronaut drifts through the wider orbital path nearby. Matt Kowalski circles the shuttle in a broad pass around the worksite. The curve of the Earth remains behind him as he crosses the open darkness of orbit. Mission communication carried across the channel between orbit and the ground below. Voices move through the line in unhurried, even intervals. The shuttle, the astronauts, and the planet below share the same uniform rhythm of orbital routine. The illuminated edge of the Earth forms a sharp horizon beneath the shuttle, a thin line of atmosphere separating the bright surface of the planet from the deep void. Along that boundary, the continental shelf passes beneath the worksite. Clouds stretch across the oceans in long white bands, sunlight catching the upper layers of the atmosphere. The shuttle rests above that moving boundary. Its open payload bay faces the Earth, and the extended robotic arm reaches outward toward the telescope assembly mounted beside it. Panels, braces, and cables form a lattice of bare metal against the deep field of space. Ryan Stone remains secured at the end of the arm beside the telescope housing. Her hands move across the exposed panels as tools glide from mount to surface and back again, each motion following the established sequence of the repair. Beyond the shuttle, another figure crosses the wider space. Matt Kowalski traces a long ellipse around the worksite, his path curving above the turning planet. Across the communication channel, the cadence of Houston fills the line. Voices pass between orbit and the ground below in structured exchanges. Along the arm, Stone works across the telescope panels. Beneath the shuttle, the planet rotates across the frame, the crew and the vehicle tracking the same continuous pattern above the curved horizon. The bright limb of the Earth curves beneath the shuttle, sunlight spreading across the upper atmosphere in a luminous band above the dark of orbit. Below the worksite, the planet's surface moves in slow rotation, deep ocean blue broken by sprawling fields of white cloud. At the far end of the robotic arm, Ryan Stone works across the telescope assembly. The exposed instrument panels open outward in layered sections, their internal housings visible between the panel edges. Stone's tools move between the wiring and the mounting brackets as her hands follow the surface of the instrument across its open sections. Matt Kowalski crosses the worksite in a wide arc, his flight path carrying him past the length of the robotic arm. His figure passes close to the shuttle's silhouette before curving outward above the bright edge of the Earth. The white suit traces a broad line across the open orbital field before disappearing beyond the edge of the frame. Across the communication channel, Houston transmits directly over the line. Voices pass between the ground and orbit without urgency, the cadence of the channel unchanged. The arm extends above the turning planet, Stone fixed at its end, while the shuttle anchors beside the telescope assembly, and the open field of orbit surrounds the worksite on all sides. The spacecraft tracks above the curved horizon of the Earth, its frame extending outward into the dark of space. Sunlight traces along the metal of the open payload bay and along the length of the robotic arm, reaching toward the telescope assembly. Beneath the work site, the thin band of atmosphere forms an azure line along the planet's edge. Cloud formations drift across the oceans. Ryan's stone remains secured at the end of the arm beside the exposed internal structure of the telescope. The instrument's panels open outward around her in layered sections of metal and wiring. Her hands move across the open housings as tools shift between their mounts and the surface of the assembly. Beyond the shuttle, Matt Kowalski crosses the wide field surrounding the worksite. His path carries him past the length of the robotic arm and beyond the shuttle's silhouette before curving back toward the vehicle. The bright limb of the Earth passes behind him, outlining his figure against the atmospheric glow. Across the communication channel, Houston introduces a brief advisory into the mission exchange. The message references orbital debris moving through a nearby trajectory. The words enter the conversation in the same flat, objective tone as the exchange before it. Around the shuttle, the repair activity holds its set pattern as the planet turns beneath the work site, the crew and vehicle suspended together above the curved horizon. The shuttle hangs above the bright curve of the Earth, its open payload bay facing the band of atmosphere along the planet's edge. Sunlight traces along the shuttle's outer frame and across the length of the extended robotic arm, reaching toward the telescope assembly. Beneath the work site, cloud systems spread across the oceans in wide formations. At the far end of the arm, Ryan Stone holds a secure position beside the exposed structure of the telescope. The instrument's panels remain open around her. Tools move between their mounts and the metal surfaces of the assembly. Her hands move across the housings, locking the final sections of the repair. Beyond the shuttle, Matt Kowalski crosses the surrounding orbital field, his path carrying him past the shuttle's outer frame before curving back toward the work site. Across the communication channel, Houston returns to the debris advisory with updated tracking data. The message reports that the debris field intersects the orbital path of the shuttle. The tone of the exchange shifts toward instruction. The crew receives guidance to secure the telescope and prepare for departure. Around the shuttle, the physical alignment of the environment remains unchanged above the turning planet, while the crew secures equipment along the arm and the work site transitions toward the shuttle's return maneuver. The curved horizon of Earth stretches across the lower half of the view, a wide band of blue ocean and pale cloud rotating beneath the orbital path. Above it, the shuttle and its extended framework hold a fixed mechanical arrangement, metallic panels reflecting narrow lines of sunlight that glide across their surfaces. Far across the open expanse, a narrow stream of fragments crosses the distant field of view. The pieces travel in a long, scattered formation, each shard tracing a rigid trajectory through orbit. Their paths remain parallel as they cross the distance between the distant debris line and the fixed geometry of the shuttle. The first fragments pass along the outer framework. Brief flashes strike across exposed panels, small bursts of reflected light marking the points where metal meets metal. A panel trembles under the contact. Another fragment slices across the long arm extending from the shuttle, leaving a thin spray of smaller pieces drifting away from the outer frame. The stable arrangement of the shuttle no longer holds. Reflective surfaces fracture into smaller moving shards that spread outward in uneven directions. A section of the outer framework breaks apart and separates from the main body, its fragments rotating slowly against the broad curve of Earth below. The debris field widens across orbit. Bright fragments pass through the frame, their rigid paths crossing the exposed geometry of the shuttle. The curved horizon of Earth holds the lower edge of the frame, a wide band of ocean and cloud marking the boundary of the planet below. Above the planet, fragments from the shattered shuttle drift through the surrounding expanse, their metallic surfaces catching narrow flashes of sunlight. A single astronaut moves through the same region of space. The white suit reflects thin bands of light as the body rotates without a stable axis. One rotation places the planet beneath the figure. The next carries the horizon out of view, replaced by the open darkness of space and the distant scatter of debris. The rotation carries the figure through another wide arc. Earth returns to the frame again, the blue limb rising beneath a drifting silhouette before sliding away once more. Only this motion occupies the frame. The astronaut turns through open orbit, the white suit reflecting narrow lines of sunlight as the figure rotates against the surrounding expanse. Nearby fragments cross the same volume of space, their rigid trajectories unaffected by the astronaut's turning motion. The horizon slips out of the frame again. Only the rotating figure crosses the open field of orbit. The open expanse of orbit fills the frame, the dark field stretching outward above the curved horizon of Earth below. The blue limb of the planet occupies the lower edge of view, its wide band of ocean and cloud marking a fixed boundary beneath the surrounding void. Ryan's stone drifts above that horizon. The white suit turns without a stable axis as the figure crosses the wide field of orbit. Thin reflections of sunlight travel across the curved surfaces of the suit, appearing and fading with the rotation. Fragments from the shattered shuttle pass through the same region of space. Small pieces of metal trace straight trajectories across the background, their paths unaffected by the astronaut's course. The uneven rotation settles. The suit turns through a final arc before the body aligns into a forward orientation. The curved horizon of Earth remains along the lower edge of the frame. No nearby debris cluster enters the view. The small figure moves alone above the distant curve of Earth. The open field of orbit stretches between the curved horizon of Earth below and the dark expanse above. The planet's blue limb occupies the lower edge of the frame, its broad band of ocean and cloud marking the boundary of the world beneath the surrounding void. Above that horizon, a single astronaut drifts through open space. The white suit faces outward, the visor directed into the wide field beyond the planet. Thin reflections of sunlight travel across the helmet and along the curved panels of the suit. Far across the same field of view, a small point of light crosses the darkness. The light traces a straight trajectory through orbit, holding a constant line across the distance between the drifting figure and the far side of the debris field. Fragments from the shattered shuttle still cross the background, their rigid trajectories cutting across the frame before disappearing into the surrounding expanse. The distant light grows brighter as it crosses the field. Its path leads toward the drifting astronaut above the planet's horizon. The small point of light approaches across the open expanse of space. The white suit remains suspended above Earth as the distant light advances through orbit. Fragments from the destroyed shuttle occupy a wide region of orbit above the curved horizon of Earth. Panels, cables, and broken metal segments drift across the open expanse, their metallic surfaces reflecting narrow lines of sunlight as they move through the surrounding debris. The blue limb of the planet remains along the lower edge of the frame, the broad band of ocean and cloud forming a constant boundary beneath the drifting fragments. Within this scattered region of orbit, 2 astronauts move through space. One figure drifts above the horizon. the white suit suspended against the wide expanse of space. From the opposite side of the frame, a second suit crosses the debris along a controlled trajectory. The approaching astronaut passes between drifting fragments, the suit following a clear line through the surrounding debris. Sunlight reflects across the helmet visor and along the outer panels of the suit as the distance between the two figures closes. The drifting astronaut remains above the planet's limb, the white suit turning as the approaching figure draws near. Fragments cross the background, their straight trajectories carrying them across the wide span of orbit. The second astronaut reaches the drifting figure. Two white suits hold position together above the curved horizon of Earth. Two astronauts move together through orbit, their white suits connected by a narrow tether stretching between them. The line holds a steady distance between the drifting figures as they travel across the open darkness of space. Beneath them, the curved surface of Earth fills the lower half of the view, the pale atmosphere tracing a thin arc along the planet's horizon. Ryan drifts behind Kowalski, her suit following the path he traces ahead. The tether extends from Kowalski's suit to Ryan's harness, its length forming a direct line between the two figures. Each movement carries them farther from the scattered remains of the shuttle, the fragments now dispersed across a wider region behind them. Ahead of their path, the distant form of the International Space Station appears against the dark background of space. Long truss segments stretch outward from the station's central modules, and wide solar arrays extend in flat panels along both sides of the station. Kowalski's suit leads the motion toward the station, the tether between them remaining straight as the distance slowly closes. Ryan's helmet faces forward toward the station's outline. Earth passes beneath them, the cloud bands and ocean fields sliding across the lower edge of the view. The two figures move together along the same path toward the station ahead. Fragments drift around the International Space Station as the station fills a wider portion of the view. Long truss segments extend outward from the station's central modules, and wide solar arrays stretch in flat panels along both sides. Beneath the station, the curved horizon of Earth spans the lower frame, its cloud fields and ocean bands forming a bright boundary below the dark field of space. Ryan and Kowalski approach along their shared line of travel, the tether between their suits remaining straight as they move toward the station. Their white suits cross the open space beside the extended truss, the station's outer framework passing through the background behind them. Along one side of the station, the Soyuz capsule remains attached at the docking port. Sections of its outer panels appear bent outward from the hull, and several small fragments drift near the docking structure. Narrow pieces of debris pass across the surrounding space beside the capsule. Kowalski's helmet turns toward the Soyuz as the two astronauts draw closer to the station. The capsule remains fixed against the station's side, its damaged panels visible along the curved surface of the hull. Ryan's visor faces the same direction. The Soyuz hangs beside the station, fragments drifting through the surrounding space near the docking area. The International Space Station occupies a wide frame of orbit, its truss segments stretching outward in long, rigid lines. Broad solar arrays extend from the central spine, their rectangular panels aligned in precise rows against the open dark of space. Beneath the station, the curved horizon of Earth moves across the distance in slow, even rotation. Ryan Stone approaches the station from the surrounding expanse, her suit and equipment forming a compact silhouette against the bright metal lattice. The jetpack on her back releases brief bursts of thrust that guide her along a direct path toward the outer truss. Ahead of her, the station's modules and connecting corridors form a fixed grid of cylinders, beams, and docking ports. Sunlight strikes the station's outer trusses at a sharp angle as stone moves along the station's edge, turning the exposed framework into bright silver lines. Sections of shadow lie between the modules, forming long bands of darkness across the equipment mounted along the frame beneath her path. Far below, Earth's cloud systems drift across the blue curve of the planet. Stone draws closer to the outer edge of the station's framework. The solar panels extend beside her like broad wings, their surfaces covered in narrow rows of reflective cells. Around her, the station remains suspended in the vast orbit above Earth, its rigid structure holding steady against the surrounding field of space. The outer modules of the International Space Station occupy the frame, their cylindrical corridors arranged along the central truss. Docking ports extend from the ends of several modules, their circular openings framed by rings of equipment and cables. Long solar arrays project outward from the station's spine, their dark panels set in narrow rectangular grids. Ryan Stone moves along the outer edge of the station's framework, guiding her path beside the trusses and mounted equipment. Short bursts from her jetpack adjust her position as she travels parallel to the station's length. Metal beams and antenna supports pass close beside her suit during her movement along the truss. Sunlight reflects across the panels and exposed framework, producing bright lines across the station's surface. Narrow bands of shadow fall between the modules and equipment housings, marking the angles of the station's geometry. Beneath the truss, Earth's curved horizon fills the distance with wide fields of cloud and ocean. Stone moves along the station's exterior path, passing the extended rows of solar panels. The arrays stretch outward beside her, their flat surfaces aligned toward the light. Around her, the station holds its position above the planet, its framework suspended against the dark expanse beyond the truss. The International Space Station's outer truss spans the frame, its long solar arrays extending outward in rectangular panels aligned toward the sun. Cylindrical modules attach along the central spine, their docking ports and equipment housings arranged at measured intervals along the central truss. Sunlight runs along the exposed beams, tracing bright lines across the station's metal surfaces. Ryan Stone moves along the station's exterior truss, guiding her path between antenna supports and exposed beams. Her helmet turns toward the station's docking section as she studies the arrangement of corridors and hatches ahead. Short bursts from her jetpack adjust her position along the truss length. Ahead of her, the station's outer modules form a sequence of cylindrical passages and connection points. From Stone's position along the truss, the circular docking ports appear recessed within rings of metal and cables. Panels of equipment line the truss between the modules, their compact housings forming ordered rows along the station's framework. Far below, Earth fills the background with wide fields of cloud drifting across the planet's blue surface. The station's extended arrays remain fixed against the open field of orbit. Stone moves beside the outer modules, her path carrying her toward the docking section near the station's airlock. The docking section of the International Space Station occupies the frame, its cylindrical modules joined along the central truss near the airlock assembly. Circular hatch rings sit recessed within reinforced metal collars, surrounded by cables, handrails, and mounted equipment. The station's outer truss extends away from the module in long geometric lines. Ryan Stone reaches the docking section and steadies herself beside the circular hatch assembly. One gloved hand holds a handrail fixed to the module's exterior, keeping her position aligned with the airlock structure. Her helmet turns toward the hatch ring as she studies the arrangement of handles and mechanical fittings around the opening. Sunlight reflects across the hatch collar and nearby panels, producing bright highlights along the curved metal surfaces. Sections of shadow fall beneath the handrails, and equipment housings attach to the module's outer shell. The airlock assembly stands at the center of the station's exterior corridor. Far below, Earth's cloud systems spread across the blue curve of the planet. The station's solar arrays extend outward beyond the module, their rectangular panels aligned in narrow rows. Stone remains beside the airlock hatch, her suit fixed against the station's outer module above the vast orbit of Earth. The Soyuz capsule drifts away from the station's docking port, its cylindrical body turning against the dark field of orbit. Sunlight catches the vehicle's exterior panels in narrow lines that travel across the curved surface as the capsule rotates without a stable axis. Behind it, the station's docking section recedes into the background, its framework holding position above the curved horizon of Earth. Parachute lines trail from the capsule's outer hull, their thin cords extending outward in loose coils across the surrounding space. The lines shift position with each rotation of the vehicle, spreading and overlapping as the capsule turns through the open field of orbit. Earth's curved horizon fills the lower frame beneath the drifting capsule. The planet's blue surface and wide cloud formations extend across the distance below, their measured movement providing a stable reference beneath the capsule's uneven rotation. The capsule turns above the planet, parachute lines trailing in a wide spread around the vehicle's exterior. Sunlight moves across the hull in shifting bands as the rotation carries each surface through the light and back into shadow. The station remains visible in the background, its long truss and solar arrays holding a fixed position against the open dark of space. The Soyuz capsule drifts farther from the docking port, its uneven rotation carrying it across the wide field of orbit above Earth. The Soyuz capsule holds a stable orientation against the dark field of orbit, its cylindrical body aligned along a steady forward path above Earth's curved horizon. Exterior panels and antenna housings sit fixed along the hull, their metal surfaces catching narrow reflections of sunlight along the vehicle's rounded frame. Through the small porthole window, the dark interior of the capsule contrasts with the bright curve of the planet beyond. Ryan Stone remains inside the capsule, her figure visible through the circular glass. Her suit fills much of the confined cockpit as she steadies herself within the narrow space between the control panels. One gloved hand rests against the console while the curved interior wall of the Soyuz surrounds her seat and instrument cluster. Inside the cabin, switches and indicator panels cover the control surface before her. Rows of small buttons and dials sit within rectangular frames across the console, their surfaces arranged in compact groups beneath the forward window. Loose straps and tether clips drift within the limited space of the cockpit. Outside the porthole, Earth's horizon moves across the background in a wide arc of ocean and cloud. The capsule holds its forward alignment, while the planet's surface passes steadily beneath the vehicle's path. Far ahead in the distance, a faint point of light appears against the surrounding void. The small glimmer remains fixed along the capsule's forward line of travel, marking the distant position of Tiangong as the Soyuz holds its trajectory through orbit. The interior of the Soyuz capsule forms a compact space of curved walls and instrument panels, their surfaces covered in rows of switches, dials, and small indicator lights. Dim cabin lighting falls across the equipment housings and the central control column, rising from the floor between the seats. The confined space holds still around its single occupant. Ryan Stone sits within the capsule interior, her suit filling the narrow seat frame beside the instrument column. Her helmet rests against the headrest, the visor directed toward the panel ahead. One gloved hand lies across the armrest beside the seat, the other resting against the surface of the control column. Through the porthole window set into the capsule wall, Earth's curved surface moves across the glass in a slow arc. Wide cloud formations drift across the blue surface of the planet, their shapes spreading and thinning along the horizon as the capsule holds its position above the orbital path. Inside the cabin, the instrument panels glow in small clusters of amber and green indicators. The readings remain steady across the panel surfaces. A thin layer of condensation traces the edge of the porthole frame where the cold of the outer hull meets the interior air. Stone remains still within the seat. The cabin holds its dim enclosure around her, while Earth turns beyond the glass, its wide surface moving in the same measured arc it has traced through the descent. The interior of the Soyuz capsule fills the frame, its curved metal walls forming a compact chamber around the pilot's seat. Instrument panels cover the forward console and side surfaces, their displays and indicator lights casting a low glow across the surrounding controls. Switches, dials, and labeled buttons sit in tight rows along the panel faces beneath the curved interior shell. Ryan Stone remains in the seat, her suit secured within the narrow cockpit. The helmet of her suit turns toward the hatch, opening behind her shoulder, while one gloved hand steadies against the console beside the instrument panel. The circular hatch ring frames the passage leading into the small compartment beyond the cockpit. Within that opening, a figure appears inside the circular doorway. The shape of a suit fills the hatch frame, its outline distinct against the dim interior of the module behind it. The rounded helmet and shoulders occupy the center of the hatch ring, positioned directly in Stone's line of sight. Cabin light from the instrument panels spreads across the interior surfaces, illuminating the curved metal walls and control housings around the seat. The glow falls across both figures within the capsule, revealing the contours of their suits and the circular geometry of the Soyuz interior. The Soyuz capsule occupies the frame from the exterior, its cylindrical hull aligned against the dark field of orbit above Earth's curved horizon. The vehicle's rounded descent module and attached service section form a compact silhouette against the planet below. Narrow seams and antenna housings mark the surface of the hull, while the small thruster nozzles sit recessed along the rear section of the craft. A brief flash of light appears at one of the thruster ports. The ignition forms a sharp point of brightness against the dark background beyond the capsule before fading along the metal edge of the nozzle. A low reflection travels across the nearby panels of the service module. The capsule shifts from its stationary position. Its body moves forward against the background of Earth, the blue curve of the planet sliding across the frame beneath the vehicle. Sunlight traces narrow highlights along the capsule's rounded exterior as it enters a steady path through orbit. The thruster housings return to darkness. The Soyuz holds its new line of travel above the planet, its compact form crossing the orbital field beyond Earth. Far below, cloud systems spread across the wide curve of Earth's surface. The capsule holds its forward trajectory while the horizon of the planet passes beneath it in a broad arc of blue and white. The Tiangong space station occupies the frame against the dark field of orbit, its cylindrical modules join along a compact central structure. Solar arrays extend outward from the station's body, their rectangular panels arranged in rigid rows that differ from the wide truss structure of the station left behind. Antennas, docking rings, and equipment housings sit along the exterior surfaces of the modules. The Soyuz capsule approaches from the surrounding expanse, its compact hull moving along a controlled path toward the station's docking section. The rounded descent module and attached service section form a small silhouette against the broad curve of Earth below. Between the two vehicles, the open orbital field separates the capsule from the station. The Soyuz crosses this distance in a steady line of travel, while the station's cylindrical modules grow larger within the frame. Sunlight traces narrow highlights across the station's metal surfaces. The solar arrays extend outward beside the modules, their flat panels holding long rectangular grids toward the light. The docking section becomes clearer as the capsule moves closer. Circular hatch rings and guiding structures appear along the forward module, their metal collars surrounded by cables and mounted equipment. Far below, Earth's horizon fills the background with wide bands of ocean and cloud. Above the planet, the Soyuz advances toward the station, while Tiangong's structure occupies a wider portion of the frame as the distance between the two vehicles closes. Flames sweep across the capsule as it drops through the upper layers of the atmosphere, the curved window filled with bands of white and orange light that travel along the hull. The planet fills the lower half of the view beyond the glass, a wide blue surface turning beneath the descending craft. Inside the narrow cabin, Ryan Stone sits strapped into the seat frame. The control panels glow in small clusters of green and amber indicators. The cabin walls press close around her shoulders and helmet as the capsule vibrates within the envelope of heat outside. Fire traces along the edges of the window in bright arcs that slide across the frame and dissolve behind the capsule's curved surface. The glow spills through the cabin interior, shifting across the metal panels and the edges of Stone's suit. Below the burning sheath of the descent, the wide atmosphere spreads across the planet in pale layers of cloud and open water. The capsule descends through the burning corridor of re-entry. Plasma sweeps along the hull in continuous ribbons of light, the glow wrapping the small vehicle in a moving shell of fire. Inside the cabin, the narrow porthole remains filled with brightness as the descent carries the craft deeper into the dense layers of air surrounding the planet. The capsule moves through open sky above the ocean, its small heat-darkened hull suspended over a wide surface of sea. Through the curved window, the expanse stretches to the horizon in long bands of deep blue and reflected light. Inside the compact cabin, Ryan Stone remains strapped within the narrow seat frame. The instrument panels glow across the control console, their small indicators steady against the dim metal interior. The capsule shifts in uneven motions as dense lower air presses against the descending craft. Below the window, the surface grows larger across the frame. Long lines of wind move across the ocean, forming dark and pale bands that travel in slow arcs across the shifting surface. The capsule drops toward the sea. The horizon rises across the window as the small craft nears the surface. Broad swells move beneath the descending vehicle, their curved ridges carrying reflected daylight across the open expanse. Green water surrounds the tilted capsule, its dark hull resting beneath the surface, while small streams of air rise from the open hatch. Sunlight filters through the water above in shifting bands, the surface forming a pale moving ceiling over the submerged craft. Inside the flooded cabin, Ryan Stone pushes through the narrow opening and moves upward through the surrounding water. Trails of bubbles follow her suit and gloves as she pulls herself free of the capsule interior. The vehicle remains below, its rounded exterior partly lost in the dim green depth. Above her, the water brightens toward the surface. The ceiling of light trembles with slow motion, driven by wind and ocean swell, moving across the sea overhead. Stone rises through the water column. Her movement carries her toward the bright surface overhead, the surrounding water opening into a wide field of shifting light, the capsule receding into the darker depth below. Shallow waves move across the narrow shoreline, their thin crests folding over the wet sand beneath a wide open sky. Beyond the waterline, low grasses and scattered plants mark the edge of the coast where the land rises above the shore. Ryan Stone drags herself from the water and onto the sand. The heavy suit presses against the ground as her hands grip the wet surface, leaving uneven tracks behind her. The capsule floats somewhere beyond the breaking waves, out of sight beyond the shifting waterline. She remains low against the shore, her breathing visible in the movement of her shoulders beneath the suit. Water drains from the fabric and plates of the suit, darkening the sand beneath her arms and knees. Stone plants her hands against the ground and lifts her upper body. The shoreline spreads around her in open daylight, the wide sky above and the long edge of the sea stretching behind her as she holds her weight against the pull of gravity.